Why is pleasure, play, and power important to public health? I'm here with Veronica Orkia. Did I say that? Orkia? I got it right? And Andrea Augustine. Um, and Veronica is from sexisdc.org. And you're talking at the Woodhull Sexual Freedom Summit in a couple months on pleasure, play, and power and public health. There's a lot of P's. I'm stuttering today. I apologize. um, and I'm really curious, like, what does that mean? Like, why are those important for public health? Well, why are you giving this talk?
Well, I think for us, we work for DC Health, for the Department of Public Health in the district. And, the typical public health prevention messaging focused around the don't do's, the risk. And in sexual health, that's really, it's not the best way to go. At least for our perspective, we really wanted to talk about, obviously there are risks, obviously we do have concerns, but we wanted to be really real about what sex is. Look at that, sex is.
I love that.
The pleasure piece and the why people have sex and how people have sex and the different ways, and to be judgment free. And in talking to both young people and older people, realized that we really needed to shift our messaging and incorporate that. And that was a natural place for us and our team that we work with at DC Health. But we came from that originally, but really starting to infuse it into the work. And we thankfully didn't get much pushback when we said, this is really where we want to go.
Yeah. Yeah. I think also too, despite people's knowledge of the risks, people are still having sex. I mean, that knowing about HIV or pregnancy or STIs, pregnancy too, because it is a sexually transmitted condition.
It definitely is.
Typically, always.
Yeah, but those things don't really deter people from having sex per se. There's so much more involved in decision when one makes a decision whether or not to have sex. And so, we really wanted to address some of the broader factors that drive sexual decision making. And then the other piece too is when in our work with youth in particular, we kind of felt like the negative or sex negative and risk reduction focused messaging was kind of unfair, because it also just didn't acknowledge that it's part of healthy sexual development, experimentation and exploring.
And they might enjoy it.
And
that's okay.
And that's okay. And it really kind of invalidated those experiences. And we're driving youth away from us. And so we really wanted to be thoughtful about what I keep stumbling over that youth sexual health development. And really be supportive of it. If when thinking about youth transition to adulthood, we would like them to become adults who have positive sexual health outcomes, and that starts from an early age.
And they enjoy it.
Yeah.
They do. They're gonna do it.
We really would have, and other people who are educating young people would have young women talking about the fact that they were having sex and it was painful and that it hurt, but they were still doing it. So that kind of enjoy it part is half joking, but half real, that we want to make sure that young people know, like, if you're having sex and it's hurting, and you're not enjoying it or you're getting nothing out of it, then that's not what you should be doing, right? Like we need to make sure that young people understand all the parts of sex,
right?
Not that just if something is dripping or has a bump on it,
You should worry about it. No, I think it's
pain,
right?
It's so important. A good friend of mine, her son is in 7th grade, and he just had the talk at school, and all he came back was STIs and scared, I'm never gonna have sex. And I'm like, okay, so this kid is he doesn't want to talk to his mom about it. Literally traumatized. Like, doesn't want to talk to his mom, his dad, his friends about it. And now he's shut down around it. And I think that means we can get so much more. We can say, hey, this is pleasurable. Here's a carrot. And let's figure out how to do it right. Not here we're going to beat you away from it.
Exactly.
Right. And the reality of it is that, the youth sexual health demographic in DC is such that, youth 15 to 24 have some of the highest rates of gonorrhea and chlamydia. So, the risk reduction messaging is just not working because are still being impacted. So we really need to think about how can we really reach youth in a meaningful way. We're not trying to stop youth from having sex in order to prevent them from having STIs. We're trying to just help them do it more safely and let them understand how to take care of themselves, how to get tested, how to get treated, and that those things are okay to do. And you should be able to ask for help. You should be able to ask for information, and try to really create how do we call it? We say
galvanizing a new consciousness.
I love that.
She wrote that.
That's great. Copy.
But I also think that it is this piece of when people say why sex is, and one of the things that we also work on adult programming, and our Power of the P and our Prep for Women campaigns are really about adults owning their sexuality and understanding what they like, also for prevention. And one of the things that I say, and this is for young and old, is that, if you know what makes you have an orgasm, if you know what turns you on, if you know how you like to be touched, and then you can negotiate that in a relationship, it's really easier to say, I think we need to go get tested, or to go to your doctor and say, you know what, this isn't right, and I need to get this checked out. Mm-hmm. But when we're so afraid to talk about any part of it, it's really hard to take care of your health, because, you talk about down there.
Yeah. I did for years. I kept using down there, and someone's finally like, no, you're an adult. Please use use your words.
And on the personal side of things, Veronica and I and some of the other members on our team, we're moms. We have children, and so we also have to walk the walk. Can't just talk the talk. So we are thinking about how we educate our children to be able to use the appropriate anatomy, words for the correct names for their anatomy and what have you, because the idea is we want them to be okay with themselves and be able to discuss things openly and freely when it comes to sex. There's no wee and no pee-pee. It's penis, it's vagina, from however old you are. And then as they continue to explore their bodies and learn their bodies, support them and validate them in that, so that they know that their moms and families are safe places and people to come and talk to, and that we're not going to be the ones who don't have sex, don't get an STI, but we want to keep you safe. Here's how you do it. And hopefully this is an experience that we can replicate all over. Maybe they can talk to their peers about sex, and they can talk to other people about sex, but it starts at home. And the idea is just thinking about positive sexual health outcomes over the life course, not just at a certain period in your life, but we're sexual beings from the moment we're born.
Yeah, we are. We're discovering ourselves our whole lives. And I just think, I know how, when we get scared, our primitive brain, our survival brain gets really active. And then the first experience they have talking about is at school, you're going to die, everything's going to fall off if you ever do this. Oh my God, you can't be relaxed, and sex is about being present and aware of your body, not being terrified and awkward. Being terrified and awkward is sometimes part of it, but it shouldn't be the predominant part of it.
Right.
Yeah, I really appreciate you both doing this work. It's amazing. Do you have people say, no, you shouldn't be teaching kids this? Do you have objections to this?
A little bit. So one of the great things in DC is that we have a pretty progressive community. I mean, we've been doing STD screening in our schools for years. We have a robust condom program that Andrea oversees, and there's condoms everywhere. There's condoms in the schools. There's young people that are certified to give out condoms to other young people in schools.
Oh my God, that's amazing. So they don't even have to go to an adult to ask for them.
So it used to be they had to go to the nurse, who would give them the don't do it lecture, and then give them 10 condoms, and they'd have to watch a slideshow. And so this was about 9 years ago, so we changed it to any adult who took a test could become a condom passer out, or we call them RAP MCs. And then young people advocated to say, can we just give out condoms? So they're kind of like condom dealers, and they have their clients they see every week, and it makes it so we're pretty progressive. There's always people who don't want anyone to talk to their kids about sex, or any kids about sex, and that's everybody from people on the street to principals in the schools that we have to go in and re-up these conversations every year about why this is important. With our Sex Is campaign, we have shirts, and they say sex is healthy, sex is real, sex is trust, sex is pride.
I love that.
Our team definitely gets some pushback sometimes when they walk into schools with the Sex Is shirts on.
How dare you use that word in front of these kids? They're going to be harmed somehow.
But I would say those are actually of the minority.
Yeah.
Those are the minority. We actually have far more people being like, I need that shirt. I need that shirt.
Because they realize what it means for their adult lives too. You know what I mean? Like they're like, oh yeah, I actually agree with that.
Yeah.
That it's real. I believe that sex is trust. I believe it's communication, and you know, it's a message that again is something that with the life course. The life. The other thing, and shameless plug for the condom distribution program, is that we provide magnums for youth. So youth serving institutions are able to get hold of magnums because we did the research. The research actually predated me, but the research basically showed that youth have an affinity for a Magnum brand. And so we figured that if this is what the youth are going to use,
you give them what they're going to use.
Walking around with these Magnum penises, whatever imagined, we're going to give them out so that people can have whatever they need or feel that they need to be sexually healthy.
But what's funny is that we actually got pushback on that from adults because they were worried that the condoms were going to slide off of the young people who didn't actually have Magnum-sized penises. And so we had to go, and I was actually at a different agency, but our boss had to go and do the measurements and then put that in the paper so we we're really lucky that we are in a place that like these things pop up and we're allowed to like debunk the myths in any way we need to and talk about it. And we have amazing peer educators in the city, and they go and they testify and they bring us data and they advocate. And one of those young people, when we were doing the focus groups around the youth campaign, around the Sex Is campaign, you know, she said the words that I think resonated so much with me when we were building this campaign. And she said, you have to retrain the adults. And that was everything. And we knew that, you know, we do an institute for adults. You know, we talk to doctors and nurses and all the people who are supposed to know about sex. And, but she said that, and that's been kind of like the carrying this through is always about like retrain the adults. So getting adults who, including those who work in our field, you know, sex educators who go out and do education in schools, and they still are doing the like, let me show you all the slides of gonorrhea, chlamydia, and chancres. Let me tell you how it's going to fall off.
And you'll never be able to have children because you'll be infertile.
Right. I mean, like, everyone loves to show the PID picture. Blue waffle. You know, so getting these people who really mean well, these adults who really mean well and see themselves as trusted adults, to realize a trusted adult doesn't just use scare tactics. It shouldn't use scare tactics. That a trusted adult really listens and say, okay, so what are your questions? And here's how I answer that. And, you know,
think about what they would have liked when they were teenagers. What kind of information and resources would have been helpful for them? Adults love to say, well, you know, in my day, we were so chaste and so pure. No, you weren't. And even if you are, there you can still be sex positive even if you're not having sex. We're not encouraging people to have sex. We would love for everybody to have the best possible sex.
When you're ready, have the best sex ever.
Whenever they're ready. But even if you choose to be celibate, you're not having sex, what have you.
You can have sex by yourself.
You can have sex by yourself.
Wonderful sex by yourself.
Or you could just at least, you know, be confident in what you want when you do decide to embark on, you know, on having sex, and know where to get tested and treated and know where the services are and be able to talk about yourself comfortably. And the idea is we don't want youth in particular to have to learn about their bodies and their pleasure from someone else, you know, from their partner.
It's wrong. I was in my 40s and 50s trying to figure out things that I wish I'd known. I'm a smart person. And I was like, really? The clit has legs? What are you talking about?
And that's the whole new consciousness piece where we're trying to make it so that, you know, these youth, as they're transitioning into adulthood, they are comfortable and confident and knowledgeable, you know, as much as they can possibly be.
The young people, that also the adults, that we're creating spaces for adults
to learn.
In particular, adult women, I would say that it's definitely skewed towards women. Are also, because, you know, for all the babies we have and sex we have, and, you know, there's still this not knowing what we enjoy or what our bodies do.
Or how pregnancy happens.
How pregnancy happens, or that we have 3 holes. The amount of times, I know every sex educator has this, like the times like the woman in the class is going, wait, we have 3 holes? Mind blown. But yeah, like just that, like what do you like? What do you enjoy? Did you know that this is a possibility, or these are options, or, you know, what do these words mean? And creating spaces that aren't a classroom, you know, because you get to a certain age and like when do you even get to talk about sex in that way, right? Like, so how do you do it at a happy, you know, we have happy hours or pop-up shops that we collaborate with, or we have a couple different people who want to do the paint and sips, and paint and sips and sex and creating, which is not something a Department of Health typically does, right? Like,
no, but that awareness of our body, like we know more about from driver's ed. We know the parts of the car. We know what to ask for, what warning signs to look for, and how to drive well. We don't know. We spend a tenth the time on the body, and it's all like, if this warning sign goes, you basically don't drive. But if you see this warning sign, run to your doctor. End of story. And it's I love that you guys rock. You're amazing.
Thank you. There is one thing I did want to add in your question about whether or not we face pushback.
Yeah.
And I want to raise, when Veronica and I were doing the youth sexual health plan, the current plan under which we're working at DC Health, we got a lot of pushback around the concept of teen pregnancy prevention. And we refused to say specifically we want to prevent teens from getting pregnant, because we didn't want to make it seem as though there aren't youth where youth don't have the power to make decisions over their fertility and over their reproductive choices. And so we were very clear in that distinction, because we felt that, the constant emphasis on the social costs and the financial costs of teen pregnancy really overshadowed, the fact that there are youth who are ready and prepared and want to have a baby. And if that is their choice, then we are supposed to support them. The true social costs and financial costs come from the lack of support and the pressure that we put on youth to make decisions that we feel that they should be making. And, there was a lot of that was a difficult conversation to have.
Unplanned pregnancy versus a teen pregnancy.
Exactly.
Two different things.
Yes.
And it's very uncomfortable with people. It sits very uncomfortably. It really was probably the only place we had pushback.
Yeah.
And there are young people that are doing this work. There's a group in New Mexico. I can't think of the name. Momentum. And they're amazing at this. Yeah. They're young women who say, don't talk about me just as a prevention need or a social. These are our bodies and we make decisions over them. And there's a lot of conversation around LARC, long-acting reversible contraceptive, which is amazing. Like I have one, it's great. I talked to my doctor, I talked to my partner, and I made decisions about it. And for our teenagers, particularly teenagers of color, the young Latina and young Black women, there is sometimes what feels like a push to have them have a LARC inserted. And there are young women who are like, I don't want that. And yes, it will prevent unplanned pregnancies, but it doesn't mean that for every young woman, it is what she wants and she should have. There are things that we as women need to make those decisions on our own.
Right.
I happen to be really sensitive to estrogen. I can't take any of those based, like for me, that would be I would be ill the whole time. So everybody should be aware and make their own choices. And I thank you very much for that nuance.
Yeah. So. I'm trying to think what else. Oh, I would say the last thing, this is not around pushback, but I think it kind of brings everything full circle to how do we now start to infuse this into our work at the government level. And I would say that, one of the things, I came from the community background, as did Veronica, and as most of our team, we all were out in the community. One of the things that I faced that was a challenge being in the community environment is, when you see a client in the room, you deal with both their sexual health needs, like their STI testing and all of that, and their family planning needs all in the same room. It's all the same thing. And being on the other side of the table, it felt very frustrating and difficult to work on those two issues in such a siloed way. Yeah. And in the plan, we were very intentional about stating that when we're talking about youth sexual health, we're talking about youth sexual and reproductive health, because we should be thinking about the whole person.
You can't really separate them. Yeah.
Right. We really wanted to be intentional about being holistic in terms of in terms of how we were going to develop programs and services that target youth.
And hopefully in the future, as we kind of pull in our other government partners and agencies, that it's not just their sexual and reproductive, because we're also talking about their educational and their mental health. And sometimes it's hard for agencies to see why they should be at the table with the sex people. Because we're scary, and obviously we're not really shy about it either.
No, you're a lot of fun.
It's hard. And people usually use the library, although our libraries are really great. They actually allow HIV and STD testing in the building.
Yeah.
So,
oh, wow, that's wonderful.
how do you get, we have some amazing librarians. They're a really underrated group of people.
But they support it very much. I've done youth HIV and STI testing in many libraries.
That's fabulous.
Like getting people who don't really realize why they should be at the table with us, but that's kind of moving forward, where we're going.
I think it brings more kids into the library. I mean, when they check the test, get a book. I mean, you can't go wrong. So
I love that you're doing this.
To think about all the social determinants of health, and be very thoughtful about the other issues that impact youth sexual health. Again, their decisions around their sexual health decisions, and just their knowledge of self and their ability to access services. We're trying to tell people, when you have youth who are homeless or who have unstable housing that are coming through your doors, you need to also think about, yes, food and income and jobs, but sex is another area, where you need to think about a person's sexual health. And I get it. Oftentimes it's difficult for a client who's in such a circumstance to prioritize their sexual health. So that's where...
So bring it right to them, so they don't have to
bring it to the table. I love that. So we're running out of time, but I would love to hear... thank you. You guys are amazing. Why did you choose Woodhull as a venue to share this at? What do you like about Woodhull?
I don't remember how it came across my desk, but I saw it, and I mean, Sexual Freedom Summit, that right there, just kind of the name alone. So we usually are at, public health venues. That's usually where we present and where we share what we're doing. And we want to make sure that we're able to share, learn, but also able to share with folks like what a Department of Public Health can do if they use a little imagination and really work with their community and think about how to push the boundaries. We know what we do isn't going to work, and that really probably doesn't work in the same way in a really conservative town. But what are the pieces that you can do, and how do you partner with? We do a lot of partnering with radio stations and people who do sexual health work in the community in different ways, and kind of pop-up shops, and how do you partner so maybe you don't have to take all the heat, but the work is getting done. And so that was why for us it seemed like a great place to kind of reach some of those people who could approach a Department of Public Health and say, I could do some of this with your help, and I could be the one doing it. So how to be creative. And I also thought the fact that Woodhull was really focusing intentionally on communities of color this year, that definitely spoke to us. I mean, we're DC, it's Chocolate City. A lot of our work is with, Black and brown youth and adults as well. So that was really an important piece, like as the shift was coming, and that was becoming a priority, to be there and to share what we're doing, and also to learn from folks who are doing some of the work we want to do or incorporate into what we do.
I think the other piece that I would add to that is, I don't know if you're familiar, but if you ever do get a chance to see our PrEP commercial that we recently released, it's very risque, tongue-in-cheek. Nice. It's edgy, but it gets the message.
We'll be showing it, actually.
Oh, great. I look forward to it.
That at the end of the commercial, it has like DC Health logo and what have you. And every time I've shared it with someone, their reaction is always, wow, that's from the Department of Health? And I say, well, why can't we be seen that way? Why do we have to be seen as these square,
gray
rigid,
suits and just
and HIV and STIs? Nobody's having sex. I mean, it struck me as the perception that the public has around certain institutions, and the kind of messaging or expectations that the institution has of the people that it serves. And I hope that our approach allows the people that we serve to really see us as partners in their sexual health, in terms of just we want you to have good sex and safe sex because it'll keep you healthy, and that's for us. You know what I'm saying? So I just really want to, as Veronica said, set the example. Like, this is what government can do, and this is what who we can be if we just try to be a little bit more creative.
I love it. Thank you both so much for the work you're doing out there. It's so exciting to know this is happening.